I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey, what's up, guys? What is up, AfterBuzzers? Welcome back to the Letter for the King After Show. We are talking Season 1, Episode 3. We hope you've been tuning in with us these last couple episodes. If you haven't checked our last one out, we had an amazing interview with Giuseppe on the show, played by Jonah Lee, so please check that out. We are coming to you live from our homes due to the recent events surrounding COVID-19, so we're ready to talk some TV with you all. We had so many amazing moments in this episode, and I'm excited to talk about it with you all. We also have an amazing special segment called The Greatest Battles in History with Miss Toree, and some other fun stuff talking. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Bryant Santos, your host and moderator, and I'm your resident lover of kings and queens because I'm a queen myself. And I also have with me the amazing Toree Weaver, who is our resident Game of Thrones lover, who is also a lover of the kingdoms. Tell me about that, girl.
Yes, so I'm super excited. You guys know I love Game of Thrones, so I'm super excited to explore these new kingdoms and see what's happening in these new realms.
Yes. All right. Well, let's just jump right into this episode. Girl, tell me some of your favorite moments from this episode.
This episode, honestly, I know this probably sounds like so cliche, but every episode is getting better and I'm invested even more every time I watch. So this episode, my favorite part was definitely when Tiuri was learning how to sword fight with the leader of the monks. I thought that was a super touching moment between them two, just about it was just like a life lesson about embracing your pain, facing the things that have terrified you in your life, and embracing that to be the person that you're supposed to be. He made an interesting point about it's not the pain that affects us; it's how we choose to carry that pain. And I thought that was just a beautiful moment between the two, and something that we can all take away from that episode.
Definitely, I'll agree. There was a lot of moments happening. For me, it did feel kind of slow, like up and down. It was a good episode, but there was moments where I was kind of like, I even looked at my phone, to be honest. Not that I was taking notes, but it was a good episode. We definitely had that really exciting episode last time, so I think I just have super high expectations. But I also agree that it was really great. So let's just dive right into it. So we start off with King Favian summoning Queen Alianor, and she goes to visit, I guess we can call her like Madame Tiuri, which is basically Tiuri's mother who's being held captive. So we talk about this a lot in the show so far of these strong women. So what did you think of their little exchange between these two strong female characters? I mean, we don't know too much about Madame Tiuri, but I feel like she's a strong character. What do you think?
Yeah, so definitely that's an interesting point. Because we didn't really get to see a lot of her in the episodes prior, but this one we kind of see that strength exuding out when she has that encounter, and just kind of like putting her, I don't want to say putting her in her place, but kind of letting her know that you might feel like you know a lot, but also know what's going on here. And it kind of to me felt like she knew about the prophecy, and that there's things that we can't, well, that they can't control, that's about to happen. And like I said, kind of gave that inside scoop to where you might know the political side, but I have my hands and ears and eyes on like the supernatural side. So it was kind of interesting to see that. And I was
Hmm.
thinking that maybe they might form some type of alliance maybe in episodes to come, or kind of they'll try to play off of each other's knowledge to try to help fix what's about to go down. So I was really interested to see that. I was nervous that when they took her away, we wouldn't see much of her, but I'm glad that she's kind of like making her presence known and we're learning more about her character.
Yeah, definitely 100% agree. And I love that exchange between the two of them. And I love when we can see, I mean, it wasn't really like they're building each other up, but I do agree that we can see something happening where they do form an alliance, because especially in the end, when we got that little moment we'll talk about later, but of now Aliana knowing that she's not going to be marrying the prince that she wants to, So I feel like she's going to kind of need that help from Madame Curie or any other strong woman to not only get out of this marriage, but to hold on to her kingdom. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
All right. So
definitely.
yeah, that was great. And moving on, we see the Red Knights. So the Red Knights are forcing the novices to march. So it was kind of fun because they were marching, and we see these little exchanges between Iona and I think his name is Jaro.
Hmm.
And so with the Red Knights and the novices, but they had a little comic relief moment where that little power struggle between Iona and Anwar leads to them having a snowball fight. So we talked about this before of these little comic relief moments when they have in the show. So what do you feel about this?
That was, again, like you said, just a comic relief moment where we can realize, like we mentioned in an episode prior, that although they're facing these life-threatening situations, they're still kids, and they still like there's certain things that they just don't grasp, and that they just want to have fun at the end of the day and stuff like that. So I think it was just heartwarming, and it kind of just was like, okay, they are still kids. Like, although they're preparing to be knights, these are a group of preteens that are trying to figure out what in the world they've gotten themselves into. So it was very funny to watch.
Definitely, 100% agree. And I like how this is definitely a family show. So it's all those little comic relief moments. There's something for everybody, and it just invites you. You know, like you said, you said before, it's
Mhm.
very relatable, and it is definitely seeing those human moments of them. So I love that. All
Same
right,
thing.
so that all happened. Then Iona survives the avalanche, and we talk about this so much that she's so strong. Like she is bold, she is brave. She came out of that avalanche and she attacks the Red Knight. This Red Knight could literally enter like nobody's business, and she like went for it. So I was like, okay, girl. But I love this little exchange between them because he spares her, of course, and says, when she attacks him, she's like, "You didn't learn this in a castle." He understands her because they're both street scum in his words. And that was such a cool little dynamic exchange. I was like, I never could have seen that kind of power or like, I guess, understanding shift and dynamic between them. So what do you think of that?
I definitely, yes, it was a power struggle. It was very entertaining to watch. And I think these little exchanges just kind of give us more context of the world that they're living in, just with the hierarchy of things and people's positions and what people think of them. It's very interesting to see how it's playing out. I'm really interested to find out more about the history of this particular fantasy land that we're in. And I think these exchanges just keep giving us more insight to that. And it was just nice to see. You know, she is one of the what honestly, she's one of the better knights in training out of the bunch, and it's interesting to see like just her be able to showcase these skills. And I do want to know, you know, what she's experienced to help her learn how to fight that way. And I do realize that some of these characters that have a lot to fight for are turning out to be the better warriors, and I'm just super excited to see where that takes her.
Definitely. And we're going to see that again at the end with, or not in the end, but throughout the episode with Tiuri, you know, that he has so much to fight for, he has all this pain. So that's definitely one of the arcs of the show, which I really enjoy.
Hmm.
So speaking of Terry, him and Lavinia, they're found by the monks. They're also trudging through the snow, trying to figure things out. And they're found by these monks who bring them to what they call the monastery at the end of the world. And right there, I would have ran. I would have literally got back on the horse and left because I would have been so shook. But it's basically like a mental institute or a prison of some sort. Like they have all these people who are, I guess, kind of like unhiltered, like just not all the way there, you know, or going through
Yeah.
something really strange. So they were definitely shook, and so were we. So what did you think about that when we encountered that monastery at the end of the world? Like, whoa.
Yeah, like I said before, it's just so many people that are crossing their paths, and you have to make a decision right then and there if you're choosing to trust them or not. I mean, these people could have literally ripped their heads off the minute that they encountered them. And it's just kind of like, what are you going to do? Do you continue to stay out in this blizzard and try to figure it out with no food or water? Do you trust them? Like, what are you going to do? And I was happy that once they got in there, you know, that wasn't the case that they were going to kill them. But I was nervous. I was like holding my breath up until they like fell asleep because I was just like, something is going to happen. Like something bad is going to happen. But just seeing it all play out, I think this was a good part of the episode. It just kind of showed that they can trust some of the characters and that some people, it just like you again touched on that mental health aspect of a life of killing and what that can do to you. And just it was just really interesting to watch. Like I said, I held my breath the whole time. Even when the guy came back into their room, I
Mm-hmm.
would have kept my knife. I would have kept my knife. So it was interesting just to see what his motives were. And I think it just spoke to us as viewers how we view people knowing their history. Because, you know, seeing him before when they first came into the building and hearing his backstory and hearing that he's not the most stable, you know, you kind of use those things and you use that to fear him. You use that to want to fight back, to get him out the room immediately without hearing what he has to say. And I was, you know, you kind of use that to judge him. And I'm glad that Terry didn't use that to judge him and kind of listened to what he had to say, tried to figure out where his head was at, and got his talisman back. So I was excited about that.
Yes. So right when that moment happened of when they first stumbled into it, we kind of see that little exchange where Lavinia is still like we talked about this before, that she's very like strong-willed as well, and she is not gonna take anything from anyone. So she obviously doesn't trust the person. Like we both said, we wouldn't trust them just walking into that scary place, you know. So um eventually Thierry wakes up in the middle of the night and he tells the abbot about what he's hearing, the voices he's hearing, what he's been going through. And that abbot, that monk, eventually teaches him how to like handle it. he teaches him how to use the sword and how to handle, I guess, that kind of thing that he's been fighting. And he really mentions about tapping into his emotions, especially his pain, which is something that I thought was so interesting. So I love that whole exchange. What did you think about that whole use your emotions kind of moment?
I loved it. I loved it. It was probably my favorite part of the episode, if not the series so far, just because I feel like it taught him so much about himself. I feel like in the beginning of the series, you heard people say you can use different things to become the warrior you want, but nobody really told him how to get there. You just kind of see, okay, I'm not strong. So tell me what it is that I have that could potentially help me. And I think this was the first character to reveal that to him. These aren't weaknesses. Although everyone has told you that these aren't weaknesses, actually embracing all that you are is what makes you strong. And it was beautiful to watch, even though Lavinia was kind of like eavesdropping and hearing over, and even though she kind of appeared like she wasn't absorbing the information in the end, I think it kind of hit her a little bit too. And I think it's something again that we can all take from that and learn. All of us have had our different hardships and pain, and I think hearing that from somebody who has his character has been through a lot. He revealed that he's had a life of killing, crushing skulls, and stuff like that, and he was able to use that to find inner peace and use that to his advantage. And I think having an older character break it down to a younger character who's at the beginning of his journey kind of shows that different dynamic and adds to the story. And so I love that entire exchange.
Yes, not much more to add because you said it all. I 100% agree. So yeah, so before we talk about the last part of the whole episode with Tyrion and Lavinia, let's just switch gears real quick and talk about the other story that is happening, I guess kind of like parallel, which is basically
Hmm.
between King Favian, Queen Alianor, Crown Prince Viridian, and Viridian. So they're all
Hmm.
kind of in this mesh. Basically, the king sends that little message to Viridian, who's out in the wars, and basically sends that little symbolic bird to him. And Viridian responds and says, okay, take this sword back and tell my father that I want peace. So I'm like, I was so confused at that moment because I was like, what does he mean? Were they at odds? We never got this context before that of were they even at any kind of war or anything like that? So what were you thinking? Did you see that coming?
I didn't, and honestly, I think that's the storyline that I'm still trying to piece together. The other storyline with Toree and all the other young knights in training and thing like that is kind of easier to piece together now in episode 3. But I'm still trying to put together the dots over here. Like you said, I was kind of like, oh, I thought him and the king were okay. I thought the king wasn't really aware of his side plan. So now I'm kind of like, what's the dynamic there? And I guess as we get introduced to more characters and we kind of see more scenes including that storyline, we'll kind of figure it out. But I'm still confused. I'm still trying to piece it together. I mean, we see that he has these supernatural powers, which is definitely going to come into play probably in the next episode. So I'm curious to see if the king knows about these powers, if his brother knows about these powers, how this is going to play out if he does end up marrying the queen. It's a lot going on there, and I'm not really sure who knows what on that side. I feel like a lot of them over there are kind of as confused as we are. So that could be good or bad, honestly.
Definitely. I think so too. And I'm loving him so far. And it's funny that, Jonah brought this up when we talked to him of just how like he's so like calm and collected and so like calculated. It's such like a very, very strong evil character. I mean, he may not be evil, but you just get that like sense of like fear from him. Like he's definitely the antagonist in this show, which is definitely something we want to see more of. We want to see what his plans are, what this prophecy is he's talking about. So hopefully we'll get that by next episode. I'm sure we are. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the dynamic between Alianor and Iridian. So we kind of see them a little flirting. Like,
Hmm.
I hope she's hoping that she's going to get what most queens don't get is not only a marriage of strategy, but a marriage of love too. I feel like they kind of have
Right.
this connection already. And in the end, of course, we find that she's not going to get that. King Favian has other plans for her because he's working in his own favor. He says, I can have both of my sons as kings, and it's just going to be the best for him. So what did you think of that dynamic of Iridian and Alianor?
Yeah, I definitely think it made her take a step back after that because, like you said, things were it seemed as if things were working in her favor. She had a somewhat, I guess, more loving character as her counterpart that she thought she was going to be marrying, and that just flips completely upside down. And I think it's kind of a relinquish of control as well. She's not in control of the situation, and then we kind of see in that scene around the campfire that she doesn't really have the power in that situation. And so I think it's definitely going to make her use her strategy even more, because now her emotions aren't really into play when it comes to this new arranged marriage. And I think her motives and her strategy and her beliefs are going to start coming to the forefront, because now, I mean, she doesn't have anything to really like question her or second guess, anything to make her second guess. And so this is going to be definitely interesting to see her and the other guy kind of butt heads. So this is going to be interesting to watch play out.
Definitely. I mean, they both look good, Iridian and Viridian. So I mean, I wouldn't have problems with either of them. But let's jump over and talk about the exchange between Lavinia and Tiuri. So we had a little chemical romance, a little romance between Alianor and Iridian, and now we're seeing this kind of budding romance between Lavinia and Tiuri. So they have a little bedroom scene, and it's very, very sweet. They kind of get to know each other. They're talking about their parents and their childhood, their upbringing, all that kind of stuff. And I want to talk to you about it because you're a Game of Thrones fan, and this is definitely not a Game of Thrones bedroom scene. So how would you compare like a cute little bedroom scene like that to something on Game of Thrones?
It was very lighthearted. It was very just heartwarming. It was very innocent. It was very just, we're both trying to figure it out. We barely know each other. We can probably learn a lot from each other. So let's just talk. And of course, in Game of Thrones, there's not much just talking. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of things for personal gain. And of course, we kind of see that in this series as well, but definitely not the same. There's just so many differences. We probably would have seen a lot more graphic things if this were Game of Thrones, but of course it's not. But I think what was interesting about this exchange is that they can definitely learn a lot from each other. And at first, when they first went into the building, I was kind of like, geez, she's right. He does trust anything that someone says. He hasn't really second guessed anything since we've been introduced to the series. And she's right in that instinct. Like, you cannot trust everyone. I mean, we're kind of in the situation because he trusted her so fast.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. But then on the other hand, when the prisoner came into the bedroom and she was like quick to pick up her knife, and she saw that they got a positive result when she put down her knife as instructed by Tiuri, I think she kind of saw that there can be a balance between having a hard exterior, not trusting people so fast, but then also being kind, being compassionate, being understanding of other people, and kind of letting people into your heart and stuff like that. So I think they both possess those qualities. I mean, we see how compassionate Tiuri is, and then we also see that she's very stuck in her ways and very strategic in what she does. And I think they can both benefit from those things, especially as they get to know each other and they get to play off of their strengths. I think that's going to be a super powerful alliance. And now that she sees what type of powers he has, I think once he starts to hone in on those, this will definitely be a power team.
Definitely. I 100% agree with what you say too, because I think that they can definitely be a strong alliance when they both they help each other with their strengths and their weaknesses. Like you said, Tiuri is way too trusting, and Lavinia doesn't do that. She basically is very strategic, and she knows not to trust everybody. And then at that same token, when Lavinia is very, very like strict and like kind of in her own ways, Tiuri is also a little bit more soft, and he's more like open to those kind of things. So I think, like you said, they definitely can play off each other really well and can build on each other's strengths and help each other with their weaknesses. So I think that'll be a really great dynamic. So in the end of the episode, like you mentioned, we're left with this really chilling moment when they're in the bed. Oh, Lavinia goes back to her bed first, and then that same person in the monastery comes back in. He's saying, it's coming. And Tiuri and Lavinia are so scared. I think probably Tiuri more than Lavinia, because she got her knife. And basically, the guards come in. The guards and the abbot come back in and save them. But Tiuri, like we just talked about, has this trusting aspect to him. He sees hopefully the good in everybody, and he sees that in that person. He's just trying to tell us something. He's misunderstood. He wants to explain something, and he did, because when Tiuri let out his magic powers of that kind of banshee scream, whatever it is, the person says, it's come. So he was basically like a harbinger. He was predicting that Tiuri's powers are going to come to a head, and it was so great to watch. And we talked about this, that I thought Tiuri had magical powers, and I was hoping
Mhm.
that it was going to come out like this. And it's definitely cool to see that. I love all this magic fantasy stuff. So what did you think?
Uh, it was it was so many different layers. It was so many different layers to the scene. So first, we get to see his powers kind of like unfold or whatever, and it's interesting because we keep saying that the antagonist in the series is so in control, so calm with his powers. He seems to be well experienced, and then you have his counterpart, which is Thierry, who is completely out of control of his powers, has no idea what's going on, doesn't know how he has these powers. So it's going to be interesting to see, this balance between control and lack of control also. So I think that's going to be super interesting. But then also, I was kind of taken aback that the Abbot wasn't eager to hear the guy out as well.
Hmm.
We had this touching moment minutes prior to this scene, where he's telling him about, embracing pain and using it to your advantage, and how this whole place is about rehabilitation and working through those challenges. But the minute that the guy kind of posed a threat or seemed like he was unstable, he was quick to order the other guys to kind of take him out of the room, or lock him up or whatever. So it was interesting to kind of see him not be as forgiving with the prisoner. So that was kind of interesting, and I kind of wanted to know, what was his reasoning behind that. Maybe it was just because, he doesn't appear to be as stable. But like you said at the end, when he said it's come, clearly he knows something is about to happen. He has maybe ideas about the prophecy. Maybe he has some type of knowing power where he kind of knows how things are playing out. And I thought that was also interesting because we don't really see a lot of characters who know as much as we know. And in some series similar to Game of Thrones, there's always like one or two characters that can kind of see everything playing out. And I was thinking maybe the prisoner is one of those characters that can kind of tap into what's going on in these different places and see it all come together, whereas everyone else is kind of fumbling around playing a game of telephone. So it was layers to the scene, and it was a very good note to end off on, and it definitely made me want to tune into the next episode to see how it all plays out.
Yes, and you brought up a good note about like how the characters in the show are seeing things from their own storyline, like straight as a line. But now that we have these two kind of like separate storylines, I'm waiting to see how they're going to intersect. With
Hmm.
basically the princes and the queens, the rulers of the kingdom, and how Tyrion and the novices storyline is going to intersect with them. Like I talked about this. I wasn't sure if it's going to be a prediction, but like, is Tyrion going to be the one to fight off Viridian or that kind of thing? So hopefully we'll see in the next episode already, or the coming
Hmm.
episodes, of when their storylines are going to intersect and how they're going to interact with each other.
Definitely, definitely.
I love that. So thank you guys so much. That's basically our recap for the episode right now. So we're going to move into our fun special segment. All right. So we're going to be talking about some of the greatest battles in history, because this show, of course, has these great battles. Then we have these great fight scenes. Last episode, we had that amazing horseback chase. So we're talking about the greatest battles in medieval history. So Tori, take it away, girl.
Yes. So the battle that we're talking about today is the Battle of Bouvines. I hope I got that right. It took place on July 27th, 1214. And this was actually an important battle because there was a large alliance formed between a lot of the different territories. So the Holy Roman Empire, England, Flanders, Holland, Lorraine, and some other territories got together to try to take down the power of France. I feel like every battle I talk about includes France, but they were just a powerhouse. So the alliance actually consisted of 9,000 men, or a little bit over 9,000 men, compared to the 7,500 men that were in the French's army. Now, actually, as you can probably predict, 9,000 to 7,500 is, you think the alliance is going to win, but France was able to come out on top, and it actually established their strength and power for generations and to come. So that was really interesting.
I love that. I'm such a like history buff. Like I love like everything about like medieval times, especially like I like American history, but I love like European history, all those like medieval wars with monarchies and all these different power struggles. Of course, I'm sure they're not really pleasant to talk about because there's probably a lot of bloodshed.
Right.
But it's definitely interesting to learn about and all the history behind it. So thank you so much for that. I loved it.
No problem.
All right, so we don't have Ben with us right now. We miss you, Ben. Hopefully, he's back with us on our next taping. And we don't have any news to talk about right now. So let's just jump in real quick to our predictions for next episode. So, if you want to go first, if you have any predictions you want to talk about.
Yes, so I definitely think, like we mentioned earlier, that we're going to start to see the two storylines intersect, because now I guess the prophecy is in motion. I'm just kind of taking the word of the prisoner right now when he said it's come. So I'm assuming, all things are a go with this whole prophecy. So I think we're going to start to see these things cross paths, which is, we've been leading up. We've had a lot of context in these first 3 episodes, and now we're going to see these things play out. So I'm really excited about that. I also think that Tiuri is going to cross paths with the rest of the Novins as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what decision they make. Are they going to choose to try and help him? Are they going to choose to try to kill him? Because they still haven't really made a decision. They've kind of been figuring out their own struggles in the meantime. So it's going to be interesting to see, if they do catch up, what decision they're going to make. So I'm excited for the next episode, because I feel like we're really going to get a lot of action now that we have the base laid out.
Definitely. I love all those predictions. I'm going to kind of throw a wild one out there just because I've seen this in other like medieval stories. I think Viridian's going to kill his father to take that throne, and I'm sure it's going to happen. And maybe possibly Viridian's going to kill his father, so he's going to take over Uanawan. And then that means that Viridian and Alianor can, get together finally, and then, maybe defend Dagenham. So maybe we'll see. Because in the beginning of the episode, in the series, I remember they alluded to the fact that it was always Uanawan and Dagenham against Evielen. But I feel like in the end, we're going to see now the two tribes are going to have to fight because of Viridian. He's throwing a wrench in everybody's plans with all his drama and his superpowers, so we'll see how that goes. But maybe that's going to be a pretty crazy prediction of, Viridian just killing his father, taking over his tribe, and then going to battle with his brother. Because I think his main goal, which I'm sure is all these like antagonists, is just power. Like, he loves the feeling of power and all the control he has of leading these armies, and of course being the king. So that's probably where this is headed. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that is pretty much our show, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, Toree, where can they find you on socials?
Yes, so you guys can find me on Instagram at Toxic Model, and you can find me on Twitter at Toree with 2 E's. And I'm also on the Motherland Fort Salem AfterShow. So you can catch me on Thursdays as well.
Yes, and you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at the Bryant Santos. I am also on the Motherland Fort Salem After Show with ya. Tune in this week, guys, because we have an amazing special guest. I don't want to tease it. I want to tease it, but I don't want to tell you the real guest. You just have to tune in to see. I'm also on the Katie Keene Friday Night SmackDown After Show and Women's Wrestling Weekly. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you next episode. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.